Hello and welcome to my final video. I thought we'd first take a quick trip down memory lane of what we've gone through for the past 10 weeks. And also, this is there as a reminder that we did start out with our 3-day challenge, our 3-day of recording what you ate for 3 days and how you felt. Perhaps how often you had a bowel movement, how your sleep was, what your attitude was like. Well, we're at the end of the term, and as promised, you get to do it again for 3 days. This time you're going to write a bit longer evaluation, and so it's there on Blackboard, what all I'm looking for. So you're writing down everything you eat for 3 days, and as well how your sleep was, how your attitude was, how your energy was. And so this is for you and to see. All right. After that, we stopped eating crap. And so hopefully you still have found you stopped eating crap in all of these crap categories. So from the carbonated drinks, not just carbonated, but the energy drinks and the iced coffees, and all those coffees are just loaded with sugars and the refined sugars. So from the candies, the artificial food. So there in the background, my brother used to love eating the Chef Boyardee and all the processed food and the fast food. I like that they have the fries and burger. And so maybe some of you are like, yes, I am next week. I'm going to finally just go out and get a burger and fries. And, you can send me an email when class is over and tell me how that went for you. But anyway, we gave up the crap and you guys ate broccoli for 5 days. And then I think we ate fruit. That's what it is. Penguins are adorable. And then we ate a salad. So that was week 3. So broccoli, fruit, salad. This is much memory for me. And then we had the nut week that some people liked more than others. And some of you are still the salad. Just add some fruit and nuts and mindful eating, which was possibly one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding weeks of eating without the electronics. And then the legumes. That would possibly be my favorite week. And in addition to legumes, you were supposed to cut out either the gluten or the dairy and just see how you feel. But really, both of those, gluten and dairy, to really notice the difference, you got to cut them out for a full month and you will notice the difference. And then we went into eating the rainbow. And you guys will be in your final presentation, you will be telling me telling the class what your favorite week is, what your favorite week was. And half of the class, it's eating the rainbow because we built up to it and it makes it so simple. G-bombs, there are some people who love G-bombs, and there are others of you that's going to be one of your least favorite weeks because of the mushrooms or the onions or both. And then for almost our grand finale was the blue zones, which was more than eating blue food. It was eating whole food. It was pretty much doing everything we did, which is included the mindful eating real food and not eating junk food, and being part of a community as well, right? And so for your last challenge, after your 3 days of recording, this will just be for I think 4 days, you will look at Dr. Greger. And again, I cannot recommend enough How Not to Die. His second book, How Not to Diet, is much more dense, but it's just so amazing. And his website's shown at the bottom right of the screen if you haven't checked it out. Yeah, and so it has a link to this. And so you're supposed to do 3 servings of beans. And again, peanuts do count as legumes. Jicama. If you've never heard of jicama, they have it like at Winco, definitely, because it's a lot of Hispanic culture eats jicama. Jicama is actually a legume. Go figure, right? A serving of berries and 3 servings of other fruit. And yes, tomatoes are a fruit, as are avocados. Cruciferous. So for first week, boy, this is all looking like I took it straight from his book, and maybe I did. And there's the spices, and then beverages, which notice there's no high energy drinks, and then he has exercise. Yeah, and that was just a reminder. First, you're going to do your 3 days, and then the last 4 days, you're going to try and follow his daily dozen. So he does have an app. And some students actually find that they like the app. And so that's part of why I offer this as the last one. It would be really tough to do it at the beginning. I have trouble doing some of his because it is more food than possibly my body can take in. But now looking at it, I probably do all of this, and I actually might do more. Yeah. Yeah, and beans also, green beans count, but peanuts, and that's because I do a serving of peanuts, a handful of peanuts or peanut butter, in addition to legumes every day, 'cause I love legumes. And there he is. There's Dr. Greger, and his story is so inspiring. Um, and so the link actually takes you there, and I think it has a video to him. There was a video before, but for some reason, Blackboard and my hot links are not working so well. And just a reminder, you guys are doing your final presentation. We did Walking Down Memory Lane. You all did 2 presentations, so one on a food and then one on a vitamin. So this last one is on a spice. And yeah, so include a recipe. You do have to, in your presentation, have at least one of the science studies. Do include a recipe and a picture of it and tell us how it went. And if you want to make it for us, go for it. I do have plates and stuff in there if it's not something like the sweet potato chipotle fudge brownies. Also include what your favorite and least favorite week was, because it's really inspiring for your classmates to get to hear how your week was. All right, and just a reminder, you'll be doing peer reviews and participation by asking questions to each other. All right, so for my final talk, just where we began, Hippocrates, if someone wishes for good health, really, this is important for all of us to ask. One must first ask oneself if you're ready to do away with the reasons for your illness. And so are we ready to make the change? And so with that, we go through the vortex into this question that I have, which is, what if everything you've learned from me was just BS? And remember, I'm a chemist, and so BS stands for boron sulfur. It can also count for Brussels sprouts, because I love Brussels sprouts. Now I know how to make them. And it could stand for Bachelor's of Science. And so if you don't know, that's a Nittany Lion. I did go to Penn State, if you didn't Google search me and learn all about me. And so there's a Nittany Lion. And they actually won when I was there. I was there when Joe Paterno was there. BS can also stand for your belief systems. What if everything you learned was my belief system? Because it was. And so I've been on a journey for many decades. And I've probably been through every diet that there ever has been and ever will be. It's hard to believe that once I did the low carb and read the books and everything, but again, those books have no references, or they're very short-term studies, because the long-term studies aren't very pretty. And it's been a lot of research. So this is actually, these next 3 slides are from a book I read that was not about nutrition, but it was by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And so for you out there, Mara, Bruce Lipton, you should get one of his books. So myth number 1 that he talked about is that only matter matters. And I absolutely love this because I'm a chemist, and that's what chemistry is the study of matter. That is not a chemist, that's Sir Isaac Newton, and it's about the mechanistic universe. And so Sir Isaac Newton came up with our laws of the universe, him and many other physicists. And so the picture in the middle is the Newtonian clock, which, right, it's a perpetual motion clock, no batteries, no plugins. It keeps running forever and ever. And there we go. There's the Newtonian human. So are you just a conglomeration of your parts? Can you be explained completely by mathematical equations, the laws of nature? Only matter matters is the age we're in, materialism. And so just look at the number of Amazon and FedEx trucks that probably will make deliveries while I'm recording this. And are you happy with all those deliveries? Well, maybe for that moment. Myth number 2 is determinism, that the cause and effect. And so for every action, we have an equal but opposite reaction. So it allows us to predict and control the outcome of nature. And I love this recording because what happens is some of you listen only to the first 5 minutes because I tell you to write on 3 things and you just write about these first 3 slides, which is really quite interesting. And so this is totally nutrition and the supplement world, because we have a pill for that. We'll give you a pill, and that pill we can predict and control the outcome. Or DNA, genetics is completely this whole thing that we've decided everything's based on what genes you have. If your mom had this, you're going to be like that. And then the third myth that Dr. Lipton talked about was reductionism, that we can be reduced to the sum of our parts. And so that is a picture of reductionism right from Wikipedia. And this is another picture. So are you just the sum of your parts? And this is a slide I've shown multiple times before throughout the term. This is from the New England Journal of Medicine, our premier medical journal, in December 2017, and it talked about reductionism in medicine. But is it just reductionism, or is it also determinism and materialism? So we went from people just being sick, and we had a name for the sickness, to we said what organ it was, and then we started saying the microbial age came, and it was due to this microbe, and then we started being able to look even more fine-tune, and we get to the place where it's at the molecular level. And so we can say it's this molecule, it's this protein in that bacteria that is causing them to have this illness. And the best part is we've got a pill for that. Or, this is usually one of the things everybody talks about. So the placebo effect, since I mentioned the pill. So do those supplements work, or are they all working by the placebo effect? So the placebo effect, I'm pretty sure you've all heard of. It is the idea, did the mom giving you the pill, the doctor giving you a pill, did that pill really do it? Or was it the idea of it? And so the placebo is that the control group gets a sugar pill that has absolutely nothing in it. And this slide says it all. There's actually a book that I highly recommend. I haven't actually read it. I've listened to a lot of his talks by Dr. Joe Dispenza called You Are the Placebo. Anyway, the placebo, almost 50% of doctors have actually prescribed a placebo 10 times in the past year to patients who keep coming in and wanting something, because they realize really all I need to do is give them a pill and they're going to feel better. Antidepressant trials. So they're called the file cabinet trials, that the drug company does these and it shows it didn't really help. Or maybe there was a 0.2% change, which really is not statistically significant unless you had like 1 million people doing it. And so over half, it really is like 75% of antidepressant trials, the placebo did as well as the medication. There was actually a story I'd listened to, and it was a woman, and after 2 years, the doctor doesn't know, it's a double-blind study, and she's coming in and she's doing so much better. She's like, doctor, this is great, keep me on this medication. He's like, well, I just got a letter from the company and we actually were the placebo, so I've been giving you a placebo. You got better on your own. And she said, there's no way. I had the side effects and everything, because she was so convinced that she had the medication. So what could he do but keep giving it to her? It was a placebo. It was a sugar pill. Anyway, cough syrups were actually pulled off the shelf when you all were children, so about 20 years ago, because they found that they actually do nothing. It's completely a placebo. They were back on the shelves within 5 days. And the reason had to do with parents. The parents said, no, I must have this. I must have it. So there's the placebo. It's all working on the parent, but it's also because most medications, also cough syrups, if it's a syrup, it's going to have alcohol in it, because that's the only way the drug, the chemical can dissolve because most things are not water soluble. And so they have to put a little bit of alcohol in there, and that's probably knocking the kid out. And so they're sleeping better, and the parent is less stressed. Now, more interesting to me is at the bottom of the slide, and it's called the nocebo. And so, while most of you have heard of the placebo, the nocebo was the story I've heard is back in the 70s. It was a doctor in Virginia, and he had a patient who'd had lung cancer, and they treated him. And he was all better, and then like couple months later, he came back and he had all the symptoms again. He said, "Oh my gosh, doctor, I'm sick again." And the doctor, just based on the symptoms, said, "Oh," and he listened to his lungs and he said, "Oh, the cancer's back. You have 3 months to live." And the patient died within a week. And the family said, "We'd like an autopsy." And they did an autopsy. And you can guess the ending. There was no cancer. His lungs were clear. He had created the whole scenario in his brain. And the doctor sat there and looked and said, "Oh my gosh, my words killed him." That I basically, when you put the no, that how many times have you done this? Or people, it doesn't matter if people have done it to you. You want to not be the person who's the nocebo. And so your words make a difference. Be the person who is the yes-cebo, right? And then I coined a phrase, probably not. It's called the fear-cebo, that when we place fear into people, we can control them. And there's another picture on that, that for migraines, apparently a significant number of migraine medication is over 40%. The knee was actually, they did for knee surgery. So I talked about this the very first week. And so half the patients did not actually have surgery. They just made the markings, they knocked them out, and then they talked for whatever 10 minutes, and then they woke them up. And the same number of people who had the surgery and who had the placebo surgery got better. Their knees got better. They healed. So just something to think about. And there's a book I was referring by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So for those who love reading, he has lots of videos also online. And here we go. So we just talked about this, the vitamins and minerals. So when we reduce this, is this reductionism? When we reduce it to this, and Wonder Bread was called Wonder Bread because they totally processed it, pulled out all the nutrients. Oh, okay, I'm exaggerating. It's something like 80% of the nutrients. And then they added back 8. So B1 was probably one of them, because that's why it gets to be number 1. But is that reductionism? Is it determinism that these vitamins or minerals are determining that? Is it materialism that this material? And so that's just the supplements. Oh, that's just me also saying, because as a chemist, absolutely, this is what I perpetuate. Materialism, I'm saying everything's made up of these elements. And then determinism, so cause and effect, a chemical equation. And right, that this causes, if you have chromium and iodine, they will regulate your metabolism. If you have calcium, which you're getting from cheese, it looks like, and right, or chocolate. Chocolate is my favorite placebo. Absolutely, no matter what. And so I titled this, besides the BS lecture, is the elementals, because as a chemist, I went through years where I kind of laughed at the original 4 elements. So this would be water, earth, air, and fire, and that we became more sophisticated and made a periodic table. And now I'm making that journey back to realizing the ancients probably had it right. And so we're going to explore the 4 building blocks, which is water, fire, earth, and air, and how they influence nutrition in your body. And I do have this one there because there is a 5th element, and also this one shows it almost in the correct order. The 5th element, the lightning there, is the best way they can show ether. So the 5th element is ether, which is the vibration. So you've heard me say we're basically empty space, 99.9999999%. So what's in that emptiness? And that would be the ether. So we're going to start with water because it is actually one of the essential nutrients. And so you do have to have water. You do get water from plants. So You don't have to necessarily drink water. There are some people who say they don't drink water, and every culture has proverbs that have to do with water. So the Slovakian proverb, pure water is the world's first and foremost medicine. And if you're blessed to have well water, you are getting your minerals in the well water. All of our water is going through filters and processed and so water, I'm a chemist. Water is the most ordinary molecule, yet the most extraordinary. It's also extraordinary because it is the only molecule, only substance on this planet that is natural, that is found as a solid, as a liquid, and as water vapor, as a gas. And there from the Tao Te Ching is nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it. And so when I was in Nepal during the monsoon, it was something I really pondered. I didn't know this saying, but because the monsoon is so much water. So can we be like water? And so the Earth's surface, of course, I'm pretty sure you all know this, is 71% water. And the thing that is fascinating about that is pretty much the same amount of water as you and me, that we're like 71% water. And this is Rumi, who's one of the most famous poets of all time, Persian poets. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And so this was an interesting slide to me. Every website seems to have a different percentage of water, but what fascinated me about this was that apparently as we get older, we become more dehydrated, and also fascinated me because women, they're saying here, have less water, which is hard for me to believe that much less. And they're saying the mind is like water. When it's turbulent, it's difficult to see. When it's calm, everything becomes clear. And we've talked about that. And that's the idea of mindful eating, to be that perfect, calm reflection of the water. And so which body part has the most water? That bottom picture is hyaluronic acid is found in your skin. You lose some as you age, and it's what makes your skin so soft. It's why babies have such soft skin. It's also the slime in slugs and snails, and this is a high price clinic or spa, spa somewhere in Asia, and the women go there and let the snails crawl all over them. So we know it's not the bones. The bones are not water, and we'd like to go with kidneys, but it's actually none of these. I tricked you, and it's actually none of these either. But it is fascinating that each part of the body has different amounts of water. Our skin is very hydrated, and that's why dry skin is an indication that things inside are not going well. But look at your liver is really high in water there in the middle. The highest percentage, your eyes are actually 95% water. And so if you think about, we always talk about the clarity and water clarity and stuff. And so here's another, let's say, do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving until the right action arises by itself? All right, water is the medium in which all other nutrients are found. And so I think you all know the Bruce Lee quote, that we want to always be flowing like water. And so water does so much for our body. It lubricates, moistens tissues. It also regulates our body temperature because it holds heat, but also helps to cool us. Constipation, we need water to move the boat, right? Carries nutrients around, flushing out waste and stuff. And it is the primary component. So let the mind flow like water. Blood, sweat, tears, urine, lymph, and digestive juices. So, this group from, I don't know, the 60s, right? They were blood, sweat, and tears. Why weren't they blood, sweat, tears, and urine? Or blood, sweat, tears, urine, lymph, and digestive juices? It wouldn't quite work, huh? So it's a good thing they stopped where they did. When you have low water, when you're dehydrated, you tend to get headaches. It's the number one cause of headaches. So a lot of you said you suffer from headaches. There is some, like, over 90% of headaches are due to dehydration. I used to have headaches. That was decades ago. When I started eating more fruit, because fruit is so high in water, um, I really don't have issues with that at all anymore. And what is so special about water? That lower right-hand corner is showing you that there's that pull in the water molecule. It's the most simple and shapely, and it's polar. And so that's what the polar bears are doing. So the oxygen always has a negative, partial negative, and the hydrogen a positive. And so it tracks other things that are polar, just like a magnet. And you keep hearing me talking about magnets, like love. Love is the water of life. Jump into this water. And so there's tons of stuff out there about water fasting where all you have is water. You're not supposed to fast more than 3 days ever, something like this. And autophagy fasting. So we've talked about how to promote autophagy. There are places where they put people on water fast for like a month and they have serious health issues and pretty much reverses all of them. But they're under medical care. There's somebody there watching their levels and stuff, and you actually have to qualify to be able to go to one of these places. They're astronomically expensive. Um, the fast that I've actually done with juice fast or something. But right in the quote from Mother Teresa, we ourselves feel we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean will be less because of that missing drop. All right, and there you go. So the ripples that we create. And so that's what my hope is with this. It's that I've created a ripple. It's a different ripple in each of you, and that you go out and inspire others. Now, this guy is an Indian mystic. His name's Sadhguru. He's all over online. He gets millions of people come to him whenever he does a thing, whatever, meditation. And he actually has a big following on YouTube. I don't drink cold water. Long before I had listened to him, that was when I went to school for Chinese medicine. They don't like you putting cold stuff into your body because then your body has to work extra to warm it up. And so they always drink warm water. And so that took a while for me to make the switch. But once I did, I don't like ice water at all. I don't like cold water. And this time of year, right now, for me, it's cold out. And so that makes sense. But that would be in Chinese and all the Asian cultures. But it also, besides the warming, there was also another reason, which is cholera. When you heat water, you denature the protein that causes cholera. And so they probably noticed when they heat the water that they didn't have as much trouble. And so he has a whole bunch of videos about water has to go through pipes in a certain way. And they even made a water bottle with him. This guy's like beyond a superstar. And that he also claims that water should only be stored in copper pots, which would be wonderful. It has to do with the vibrational thing because water is very sensitive to vibrations. Copper pots are extremely expensive. So Agni, well, I'm talking about Ayurvedic Indian, Agni is really important to them. So Agni is your digestive fire. And so that's the idea that if you're putting cold stuff, you're numbing that digestive fire. And we want to keep that digestive fire is what keeps our body warm. And then earth would be this idea of eating dirt that I've talked about and getting enough minerals. To me, that's vitamin G, just go walking barefoot, how important that is. And right, eat food, drink water, breathe air. So the air element, we do get that all the time. And by the way, the element theory, the reason that theory is so amazing is it does cover solid, liquid, and gas, and fire is the change in states of matter. There is, to talk about the air diet, this somehow won the President's Book Award, that there is actually this thing, but this is about allergies is what that one was. I just like the picture. But there is something called the virtual eating diet. And so if we want to talk about bad fads, it is celebrity endorsed, French inspired, and you actually make the food, you inhale the food, but you never eat it. You pretend like you're eating, you just don't do it. You breathe the aroma, you swish it around your mouth, and you actually pretend like you're chewing and swallowing. There's just no food in there. They allow water mixed with salt, right? And so the question is, does this actually create more fear of food, as all diets do? Because this is not really fasting, and you're going to end up breaking down your muscles and stuff. So why not just make it that you could eat healthy, nutritious food or go and eat dirt? And that was a cartoon, because apparently there's places where people do that. I have to say, when I go on my silent retreat, the food is amazing. Amazing. These are some of the different diets in case you haven't heard it. So the omnivore is the idea you can eat anything. Pescatarian, you eat fish, but no other animals. You do eat dairy and eggs. And vegetarian, you eat dairy and eggs. Vegan is no animal products. And again, you've heard me say, I'm not a vegan. I would never qualify, because first of all, it's like a political statement in a lot of ways. I have these awesome leather boots you guys see me wear, and I also use honey. And raw, I do a lot of raw. You hear me talking about fruit and salad, so half of my diet, probably even more, is raw. So I might actually be close to 75%, especially in the summer months. In the winter months, I do eat cooked food because it's really important, because it helps to break down the cell walls. And I love making soups and curries. Fruitarian is not healthy, although for a short time. And so that is something like sometimes I'll do just fruits for a couple days if I'm feeling like I'm getting a cold or something, because fruits are just so loaded with antioxidants and anti everything. The mono fruitarian would be extremely unhealthy, other than to do it for a day. That all you eat is bananas, and it's just to get you through the day. But you can see that it wouldn't be something you would want to do for longer term. Liquids, again, that's a short-term fasting. That might be a day, a week, or a month. And some of you have shared with me you actually have done that at times. I will warn you with these that you go through a detox and it affects your mind, and you get grumpy because you'll smell food everywhere you go. And then the breatharians, these are people who just breathe. They just vibrate. This is a terrible diet fad. Don't ever do this. So it is that people actually, you can buy this online, of course, at Amazon, that you put dirt in water. It's special dirt. It's clay. It's called bentonite clay, and it's super absorbent volcanic ash. And there you go. Don't do it, because it has serious side effects. It removes the toxins, so it pulls out heavy metals and toxins, because volcanic ash is apparently like the super thing that our planet has. And right, there's these things that promote it. I found a thing, it was like the 5 worst diet fads ever, and this was one of them. And it actually swells up 12-fold. So I have a story from a friend who actually is a doctor now. He's amazing. He didn't do this. He did it. Mashed potatoes that are dehydrated, and he was so hungry, he ate a whole bunch, and he didn't cook them. And then they just started swelling up in his stomach, and his stomach grew. Like you could see his stomach growing to like the side. He thought he was going to explode. But anyway, that is one of the problems, that it doesn't help. Right, even though I don't know who those stars are that they claim, that is unhealthy to lose that much weight in that much time. And we all know that these supermodels and these movie stars are extremely unhealthy. It's hard for your body to actually digest, and you can actually destroy your bowels, which would be really bad, to perforate your bowels. So then things are, yeah. And you could go into heart and kidney failure. Yeah, don't try it. Just eat real food like we've been doing all term, and get some vitamin G. Always go walk in the dirt, go play in the dirt, go eat your salad every day. So fire. So Agni, digestive fire. I just talked about this. And also in Chinese medicine, even though the heart is given the fire element, the earth element is given to your digestive, your spleen and stomach. They talk about the importance of the spleen qi is like fire, and that when you're in poor health, this is So weight gain and your skin being greasy and having low energy and also having a swollen tongue are all signs that your digestive fire is not working well. And they would treat your chi, and they have this idea of the 5 elements, which is interesting because it doesn't include the air element, which I've never fully understood why. But it's probably metal, because metal is sometimes translated incorrectly. And so Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, they both have their diet plans. Shouldn't be called diet plans. It's basically teaching you to eat whole food and to eat spices and stuff. And this is also from Sadhguru, this idea, and this is the water has a memory. Depending on how you treat it, what kind of thoughts and emotions you generate, accordingly, it behaves in your body. And this is just a reminder that we are 70% water. It's not just it's the water in you. That every time you send yourself bad vibes, you send bad vibes to other people, you're affecting the vibrations of the water, which is affecting everything. And so don't be the nocebo, be the yes-sibo. And so I talked about this, and I said I'd have the pictures eventually, that there is this scientist in Japan, I can't remember his name, but he took water and they learned how to make it into crystals and take pictures under an electron microscope, so to freeze it. And depending on the words they said to the water as they were freezing it, or they could even tape the words on, or they could sing. The ones at the bottom, so you can go on and see, these were all beautiful crystals. The ones at the bottom, one was from a spring water. Yeah, the last clean stream in Japan is the bottom middle. Yeah, and so you can pick what your favorite crystal is. I think mine's different every time, but the thank you or gratitude one at the top, that's pretty beautiful that you could make a crystal like that. His work, I will give you the criticism of his work. They say that, again, it's like the placebo, that he file capped and he threw away half the photos, like we all do when we take a picture and it's not a good picture, and he only showed the best ones, but it's still the thought that counts. And so you can see there are the ones that didn't make crystals by the words. They also apparently started just putting photos for the water, a photo of a dolphin or a photo of a lotus, and they could get a crystal to form that was beautiful, or certain types of music. And so the music we listen to, and then these are from polluted streams, distilled water. So the idea that people who drink distilled water, that the water, because of the distillation process, is actually messed up the water and they could not get any crystals to form. The Yodo River that's shown there, it's considered that a lot of our water is so contaminated that water can't form these. And yeah, okay, I don't want crystals forming in my body, but I want them to have the vibes that allow that kind of crystals to form. And then the fountain in Lourdes, France, that's the fountain of healing that people go to in the Christian faith. Anyway, eating high frequency food, your food has a frequency. Processed food has absolutely no frequency. And that's why we're attracted. That's why the Rainbow Week is so many people's favorite, that we're attracted to high frequency. It is also the colors you wear. Start changing your wardrobe. Go to Goodwill and buy some bright clothes. So I went through this past weekend. I was having one of those days and I was grumpy, and I happened upon these 3 marvelous children who were just like seeing the face of God. They were just perfect. Their eyes were just so pure and beautiful. And anyway, I went home and changed and wore all pink, and it really brightened and lightened my day, and ate some fruit, because fruit always has high vibes. Your teacher. And we talked about this, that this whole clunky thing of everything I've taught you about vitamins and minerals and carbs and proteins and everything I know, I think we have it all wrong, because those are chemical messages and they're important. We don't have it all wrong. They're important, but the vibrations are the key. And those things are affected by the vibrations. They're kind of the background that we need them. But the key is the vibrations. And so be the thing that is constructive rather than destructive interference. So we want to have our chi, our prana, the vital force, our life force, our love to be the right signal. And so the wrong signal should be the traumatic signal of trauma, toxins, thoughts. That is not going to be the same signal that the kiwi or those beautiful purple grapes are going to send. That the vibes in your food, that we have chakras, that I could go on and on and on about the different foods that affect each chakra. But there's the healing sounds. And so this was actually meditation I learned during COVID. And the sounds I do are a little bit different than that picture, but the healing bowls, and this is the idea why acupuncture works, and doesn't have to actually be acupuncture. It can be acupressure. And so most people need the needles to stimulate something, but does it all work by the placebo that the person believes they're being healed by those needles? I don't know. The needles do help when you're definitely in need of a placebo effect. And this is actually my background, even though I'm a chemist. My background's actually doing DNA work. I was a gene jock back at Penn State and at Duke, go Blue Devils, and really believed our DNA. And then what has happened in the past 30 years just blew my mind. And I'm like, no, that's not what it is. But I've mentioned, if you really want to take a look at your DNA, our DNA is playing a symphony. And that picture showing the DNA, it is a music. It's a harmonic. And the code also is playing a song. So when you reduce it to the 4 letters, there is a song our DNA plays. And in case you didn't know, human DNA, 98% of our DNA does not code for proteins. We're the only species like that. Everything else, their whole DNA codes for proteins. Or there might be regulatory areas, but ours doesn't. So what's the rest of it doing? So the question I have here is, do you want to be healed your defective gene by a molecular robot? Because this is from a Scientific American picture of that we're going to go in and fix your genes, because everything's determined by your genes. And so my question is that materialism? That you're determined by the material of your gene when 98% of your DNA is not a gene? Is this reductionism, reducing you to your genes, or determinism? When only 2% of our DNA actually codes for a protein. So this is a quote from Dr. Bruce Lipton, that it's not the karma, it's the driver. And so you are the driver of your own destiny. And that's a picture of Dr. Bruce Lipton. So your perception is what influences your brain chemistry. So this idea of our belief system. And so being a conductor, and it's just me, as I've mentioned, that on Saturdays I get to play, and on Fridays and on Wednesdays, it just keeps expanding because it just brings such joy when we help others. This is from a book I also recommend. It's called The Genie in Your Genes, which is very clever. And so the idea that our external environments, we've done this. We had the mindful eating, the blue zones, the importance of not just your diet, but your support system, as well as what's going on inside of you. Every thought, feeling, and intention. And this is interesting research. I've actually read about this study in a couple different books, that our view of God, do we see God as this judgmental being or as the most loving, divine, and our faith and practice of faith and the memories we associate with those, that they are our consciousness. And that is what releases this biochemical cascade that brings us health and healing. And so as one of your classmates had said, she had been in a toxic in the past, and now she's surrounded by friends that she created the environment she's in. And when realizing that, and so our body responds. Sorry, I didn't fix my Le Chatelier's comment, but Le Chatelier's is the idea that our body can go back and forth. And so the genes are just contributing to the characteristics. And so Dawson Church is another one, and he talks a lot. He actually is a psychologist, And so this page is from his book. I found it actually at Goodwill, The Genie in Your Genes. He has other ones. And he said he was looking in the mirror one day when he's like in his 40s or something, and realized he was always frowning. And he resolved that day to make a change. And he is just always so joyful to listen to. And so epigenetics is beyond genes. And the thing with all of this is your diet. If you want to bring it back to the diet and nutrition, is your diet does influence your epigenetics. So it's the idea of how the DNA folds. So it is your thoughts as well as your diet, of how you're eating mindfully, of the blessings you give your food so that your food has higher vibrations. So what if consciousness is essential to transforming the unconstructed quantum world of possibility? Quantum world just means the vibes, possibility, to resemble your everyday reality. Reality is not fixed. It's fluid. Be like water, my friend. And it's open to influence of your thoughts, of your food, of your friends. Another person I recommend, if you've never heard of her, so the Intention Experiment, I can't remember her background, but yeah, and it was just having a group of people sitting together, a small group. She just went with the number 8 for some. She just had to pick a number, and they would all focus on one person and just send them good vibes. And I actually did this with one of my classes, and I was not prepared for it was somebody had to leave class because they were having emotional issues. And so we just I told them when they left to send, we'd all been together for 3 terms. This person, good vibes. And the person came back 2 days later and was like 100% fine. And we were just all like, hmm. Anyway, this is a picture from the Hubble Space Telescope that we're all familiar with, all of the pictures, that when we look out at the sky, the clear sky, we see individual separate stars. And then there was the Chandra telescope, which used a different lens. And it took the same picture, and every star was connected to others. So when you look out there and you see Orion and you think of it as 3 separate stars, they're not. There's a connection between all of the stars. The Pleiadians are easier to see the connection. That one's like obvious. And so it's like us. So the question is, most of you have been comfortable the whole term with those discrete particles to explain your existence, vitamins, the hormones, bind to receptors, our diet, our drugs, our supplements. So the question is, how comfortable are you with those intangible waves, string theory, quantum mechanics, electromagnetic signaling? I'm not asking you to do the math. The idea of consciousness, idea of energy healing, of miracles, because we are that miracle. So are you, because we are, this caterpillar that goes into the cocoon, and there's not a single bit of it that comes out as the butterfly. And they do not know how this happens, but we are that. And so it's back to that quote at the beginning from Hippocrates, when you're willing to say, and it's all about yourself. You can inspire others, but they have to make that. Oh, and we're going to talk about super learning just real quick, since we talked about this, that because a lot of people, if you didn't want to listen, you already stopped, wrote your 3 things, but some of you are still listening. This is pretty cool. That they have found that our heart, we do all this stuff about brain waves, and there's beta waves, alpha waves, theta is the heightened meditation, deep sleep, and then gamma is like where we're trying to get to. And so we're not getting a lot of stuff happening. And so it's all about the brain waves, but it turns out when they look at super learning, it's not about the brain, it's about the heart. And your heart anticipates events before they happen. And over 1,300, I don't know who's done this from your immune. There's probably many, many, many more. And so there is this place down at Stanford called the Heart Math Institute. And Anyway, they put a monitor in this experiment on the brain. They don't actually have to put it on the brain. You can put it like a couple inches away from your head, and it still picks up the vibes because it's giving off vibes. And the same with an EKG, which is the heart monitor. And they also put sensors on the skin to measure the response. And then they had the people who were hooked up to all three of these things, brain, heart, and skin. They had them look at a blank computer screen, and then they showed pictures. And then they measured which response happened first, the skin, the brain, the heart. And so the image would appear, and it was one of two types of images. It was either an emotionally arousing image, like of an autopsy or sex or violent. And I chose not to show one of those to you, or it was a calming picture, like of nature or people smiling. And so there's my Joey many years ago. And of course, I gave different responses, but they looked to see what responded first, the brain or the heart. Everybody locks in their answer, and of course, it is the magnificent heart. Long before there's any activity, not long before. This is all we're talking in less than a second, right? Before there's any brain activity, the heart has already responded if it's loving the picture or not. But there's more. And this is the part that's really fascinating. Both the heart and the brain responded before there was actually an image on the screen. Remember, with electronics now, they can know the moment. So before there was even a picture, the heart and brain already knew what the picture was. Oh, but it's even better. It was actually before the random image generator in the computer had actually picked which image it was going to show. So who's in control here? Was it the computer? That the heart already responded, and then the brain. So the heart responds, then the brain responded before the computer had actually made the choice. And then last of all was the body response, which is the the skin response. And so your heart is giving off vibes. And you can see from this picture, the heart, the green is coherence. So they're in vibes. And then incoherence is the interference where there's not. And so I don't know if I mentioned it on this slide. There's a lot of neurons connecting your brain. If we want to get back to the materialistic whole explanation here, between your brain and heart, right? Between your brain and everywhere. 95% of those neurons are actually traveling from the heart to the brain. 95% of the communication is from the heart to the brain. Something to ponder. But anyway, this is something that talks about the fluid state of awareness, that prayer and meditation create this idea of coherence between your heart and your mind, the inner state of ease, focus on now. This is also showing the idea of heart variability. So obviously frustration creates incoherence, where we're getting this frustrated, but it's more looking at the waves, the heartbeat for the appreciation, which is the state we want to be in. And that's saying that, I don't know when it occurred, but I appreciate you. I appreciate this. It's a beautiful word. That if you look, they're not all exactly the same. And that is actually really important. And so the greater that variability is, not to the point of frustration, but that difference, that they're not all exactly the same, is actually really important, because it shows that you can adapt. So when a change happens, like COVID happened, and some people just freaked out and couldn't deal with it, I didn't have a choice. I mean, I had to go online, and you guys all had to go online. And the fact that you could adapt, and you've been doing it all term, like these crazy challenges I throw out at you. And I cannot say how much words really do not adequately explain my appreciation and gratitude that you have all played along with me all term, and really seen how much and found your own belief system and been able to adapt and realize that, yeah, maybe I don't have to go to Starbucks, and that when you drive by Starbucks and don't even feel the urge or whatever, Black Rock or whatever your go-to was. Um, and that you can be that change, that inspiration. Because I have had students say that how much it's inspired others to actually do the same, and to just keep your heart open. And this we've talked about that again, humans, we're very special in a lot of ways that you want to not be the one who is in the state of survival of cortisol, but you want to be the state instead of cortisol and adrenaline. You want to be in the state of creation, which is love, and collecting and protecting. And you determine that with your thoughts and with the food choices you make. Make it easier because you've all had comments at some point that this week, this food, I did find the more fruit I'm eating, or as I'm eating salads, that it's much easier. And love is in the air. It is springtime, that you're noticing the birds. So is it that, so when I go on my silent retreat, speaking of the birds, there's like no birds the first 2 days, none. And then suddenly the squirrels start appearing and they're everywhere. And I've like really pondered this last time I was really observant, and there really were none the first like 3 days. And so I'm like going, am I just not being observant? So I'm so stuck in my place and I don't know the answer. Or is it that we all are carrying so much junk around with us that we scare off all these birds? And by the end of the retreat, everyone is so much more relaxed. The amount of birds and squirrels, and there's a family of deer that come by. Um, anyway, I talked about this previously, that the Earth's magnetic resonance vibrates at the same frequency as our heart rhythms and brain waves. And I always love when somebody comments on this because I'm like, wow, they actually listened to me all the way to the end, or you just woke up. I don't know. And I've shown you this picture before of, you determine your vibrations. And so allow yourself to blossom. And so when I'm doing it, this is what I feel like. I feel like I'm covered with butterflies and flowers and right, giving off the good vibes. And so I don't know who this dude is, but I just love the picture that my final blessing for you all is to eat healthily, sleeping well. We talked about that, breathing deeply and slowly, and moving harmoniously. Vortex again. Oh, this was just a picture of my gratitude. So when we got to be in Tibet, that is the Dalai Lama's palace, and everybody, the blue zone, that I would have made this a blue zone because we ate so happy. We exercised. Oh, no, it was just a joy. And with that, just a reminder again, that slide, you always have the choice. So eating healthily, sleeping deeply. I would add to his playing and laughing, giggling until you jiggle and wiggle, and the art of prayer, of breathing and smiling. And if the word prayer still terrifies you, then just use the word meditation or contemplation. And so last piece I want to end you with is 2 quotes from the Dalai Lama. The first one, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. And if that didn't make you giggle, his other one, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. And if you want to be happy, practice compassion. So with that, again, I'm so grateful for all of you listening. You just had to write about 3 things that you pondered. Some of you might write about more, and I'd figure out how to stop. Thank you. Namaste.